Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of our brand new Time to Talk, our fortnightly live conversations about mediumship. My name is Rafael Caldas, but you can call me Raf. Um, I'm going to be one of your co hosts of this program.
My name is Guilherme. I'll be here with Rafael, Raf, trying to be closer to you guys, trying to be simple as possible. And we are very pleased to be here tonight.
Very pleased indeed. So, today we are kicking off, we're starting this new program. We'll be meeting here every 2 weeks on Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. UK time. But before we dive in, let me tell you about the groups that are behind this initiative. Now that you already know the both of us, our faces. So, firstly, this initiative is brought to you by the Spiritist Society of London, which we normally refer to as SSL. So you hear us talking about SSL all the time. Both Guilherme and myself, we are part of SSL. And we are a study group based in London, dedicated to the study, the dissemination, and the practice of the Spiritist teachings. Every week we have both face-to-face meetings and online meetings. So if you're interested and would like to join any of the meetings, any of the study sessions, go to our Facebook page and you can get the details there. SSL is an affiliated group of the British Union of Spiritist Society, which is called BUS. So we refer to BUS again all the time. The British Union of Spiritist Society is an umbrella organization that unites many Spiritist groups in the UK with the purpose to advance the dissemination of Spiritist philosophy. They are behind many seminars, conferences, training courses, and a lot of other initiatives. You can also find more details about BUS and their affiliated members in their website and Facebook pages. I also want to say a special thank you to Elsa Rossi for driving and helping us, supporting us in this initiative, getting this program off the ground. Thank you, Elsa. So BUS is supporting us by broadcasting Time to Talk on their channel and Facebook and YouTube. And third one, last but not least, is Kardec Radio. That's our second broadcasting supporter. It's a Spiritist radio. I guess now it's more of a wider platform, and it's committed to spreading the universal message of Spiritism in English to the world. So Kardec Radio has been around for over 10 years now, and they have a very wide range of programs, including podcasts, videos, audiobooks, lives, everything available online. So go follow them and check their website for the content. In the same way, I'd like also to say a special thank you to Vanessa and Saloni for supporting Time to Talk and everybody behind Kardec Radio. You can also catch us through their channels on Facebook and YouTube. Right. Now it's time to talk. So, Guilherme, I'm gonna ask you so you can kind of explain to them a little bit of what's behind this program. And I think the first question I want to ask you is, where did the idea of this series come from?
Well, Raf, there's a lot of lectures on the internet. There's a lot of very, very good people explaining the Spiritist topics, mediumship topics. But we felt like there's a gap because quite often they are very, very formal too. They are very good. I'm not saying anything different than that, but they are very formal. And there are certain people like we are that we don't feel that comfortable to make questions, or sometimes we don't even have the opportunity to make questions. And we would like to address that gap in particular. We want to learn together. This is not a formal study. This is not a lecture. This is a conversation where we will be sharing the little we know our experiences, our thoughts, our doubts as well. Because every time we make a question, we have to study, we have to try to learn a little bit more. And that's what we want. We want to make not only spiritists comfortable enough to talk to us, to share their thoughts, send us their questions. And then we can work together to have a pleasant time every 2 weeks. Perhaps we will learn something together. What
Yeah,
do you think?
I think you said something that I just want to pull from your message now is we want to open a conversation up. The plan is to study together, if anything. We are not here pretending to know everything. I think the main point is to address the questions and comments. I hope we receive comments and questions and cases that we don't know, so we can go research and bring clarification, studies, or doubts maybe. But as Guilherme pointed out, kind of in a dynamic way, learn together. So would you say this is addressed to any specific public, or who do you think is a public that is welcome to join us then?
Well, we know that mediumship does exist on every corner of the world. So everyone that feels like there's something but does not understand yet what's going on, someone that feel like I'm having a different feeling, I'm having different experiences. I'm not a spiritist, I'm Catholic, I'm any perception you may have, any direction you may have, you are welcome, because we are here to talk about things that are not related to any particular religion or any particular person. We are here to talk about things that are natural, common, more than we think, and we all can learn something about it. So there is no specific target or type of audience. It's open to everyone. So as we all can be a little bit sensitive about something, that's for you too.
Cool. So recap. Anyone who has any interest, it's curious about the topic, have questions, have been through cases, is reflecting about things, regardless of their background, faith, or anything, they can join us, send their questions, send their messages, and we're going to try to address them. Again, every 2 weeks. Now we have a date in the calendar with all of you. I will take this time actually to see a couple of comments here and say hello to some people that are joining us. Oh, some people. Big hello to Elsa. Hi, Elsa. Thanks again. Ruben, thank you for joining us. Faye, hello, Faye. Nice to see you here. Terry, Ahmed, Natalia, Fabrizia, Steven, thanks a lot for your support and messages. Help us out. Send us comments and questions during the live so we can feed the conversation with all of your participation. Okay. I think it's clear what is the main purpose of our call. Let me share this again with you. There you go.
There's Rafael, I would like to say that is also very important to make the people that are watching us comfortable. Do not wait until we finish a topic or to finish a sentence to send your question. The idea is to try to answer those questions or incorporate those questions in what we are talking straight away. So like that, we don't miss an opportunity, because quite often when we leave to make a question in the end, for example, in the end, we don't want to make the question anymore, or we even forgot the question. So if you do have something, send it straight away, and we will do our best to try to accommodate that as soon as we can. Don't hold your question to the end. A question needs to be sent straight away. And bear in mind that we should exercise the children that we have inside us. Children make questions all the time. Why? We should be a bit younger now and try to practice what we did when we were very young. That's a great opportunity for that.
Very true. And if you don't ask a question when it comes to your mind, you might forgetting about it. And if it's coming to your mind, it might be coming to other people's minds. So just shoot them our way, and we will try our best to tackle them. Just a quick introduction in terms of how this structure is going to work going forward. I think the plan is to open up 5 minutes. We'll do a little introduction, a recap, or pick up from anything that was left in the previous week or the previous episode better. Then we'll spend some time trying to develop a specific topic of the day, around maybe 20, 25 minutes. Then we'll give another 20, 25 minutes, maybe half an hour to address questions. So please fill the comments box with your cases, your questions, and we'll bring them up to help this being more dynamic. And then the last 5 minutes, we just kind of calm things down, do a closing summary, and that's it. And then we see each other again in 2 weeks. So enough housekeeping said. Let's go to our first episode. We've been talking about what would be the best way of approaching this. How do we start talking about this? And how do we talk about mediumship, the ability to interact with spirits in a very simplistic way? But I think there are a couple of questions we need to go back to before we start talking about mediumship, which is the existence of spirits, the existence of souls. That's why this episode we're going to start talking about this question. Do I have a soul? Do you have a soul, Guilherme?
I hope so. Otherwise, we will not having this conversation tonight. And
why do you say that?
Well, I don't particularly believe that what I think, my thoughts, even what I do is a consequence of a poor chemical reaction. I don't think so. That there's more behind that. And as we go along and we study a little bit more, we feel confidence that there is indeed a lot more. And if you ask me, do you believe in spirits? My answer will be no. I don't believe in spirits.
How come? What do you mean?
I know they exist.
Right. Okay.
When you believe in something, it's something you read in the book, something you heard someone saying, something that you consider as hypothesis, as a theory. I cannot say that because I know they exist. Through the years of practice on meetings, mediumship meetings, through the relations we create with the other side, with the work done together with them, I cannot say that I believe. I need to say that I know. I see consequences. I feel their presence. It's hard to explain. You have to live to have the same feeling. You have, well, of course, first to study to understand, because sometimes we feel things that we do not identify straight away. But after a little bit of study, you start to feel and understand and create your own possibilities. And in the future, I hope we all will be able to say that we know we have a soul. We know we are spiritists. But yeah, carry on.
No, that is interesting what you're saying, because I think depending on our upbringing, on our life experience, I think that kind of question in terms of do spirits exist? Do I have a soul? Is there life after death? What happens when we die, and so on? I think a lot of people might have been told the answers to the questions. I think a lot of people might just straight away just go deny it, don't believe it. When the body's gone, life's gone. A lot of people might never even thought about it. And you're talking about your own experience, and I think you're very secure about your belief, or you know. better what you know. But a lot of people do not have that. And I think before even going to the, oh, where's the proof of the existence of everything else, I think there's a reflection that we need to invite people to do, which is, how do you actually feel about it? Do you feel like life goes on or not? And that's something that people need to start thinking about it if they want to investigate, progress, ask the right questions, look for answers, research, and so on. And there were a couple of comments here that I want to read out. That was actually quite interesting. Tiago said that he doesn't have a soul. He says he is a soul.
So we're on the same page.
Trapped in a body, which I think is a very good way of seeing it. Maybe trapped is not, I wouldn't say trapped, but I think I can definitely understand and relate to that. And I think that's probably an interesting way of putting it, that if we have a soul, let's say it, our soul is what lives on. So that is actually the reality, the real version of ourselves, and not the body that we are in at the moment. That's just a momentary phase. Again, assuming we have souls that go on.
I'd like to make a comment here, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a parallel, right? Going back to the original question, do I have a soul? Well, there's no instruments to prove that I have a soul. I cannot see my soul. Yes. I was told this soul thing is just religion, it's just people trying to format your ideas. Yes, but then, funny enough, do you breathe? I would say yes.
I breathe.
Yeah. Do you see the oxygen you are breathing? No,
Nope.
You're not. But how do you know it does exist? Oh, because somebody was able to measure, weight, identify chemically. Yeah, fair enough. But have you tested yourself? No, very unlikely. Well, the minority of people do, but the majority, like us, we don't have means to do it. But we know exist. How do we know exist? Because when we inhale, we feel something filling our lungs, right? So we start to feel in our body there is something. The soul is the same. When we feel, when a spirit sometimes come closer to us, we can feel the energy. We can feel the presence. Sometimes we have a little tickle, a little something that we don't know what it is. So there's a lot in common in principles of things we do not see, but exist.
Yeah. I think I want to make an interjection here, because you're specifically talking about oxygen, and I think that is an interesting parallel, because I can tell you, look, I don't know about the air, but I can feel the air because I can feel the wind, so I know there's something. But specifically about oxygen, that's an interesting one, because I don't know what's the level of oxygen in the air that I'm breathing at the moment. And I'm not measuring it all the time, but we studied, we know that we need oxygen, and I am still here talking, breathing, going on. So I know that the air that I am breathing has enough oxygen to keep me going. And I think that the difference is, again, the same thing. You're not able to monitor that all the time, but somebody, and through science, they went on, studied, identify how the body works, identify what the body needs, and then share that information with everyone. And now I make the assumption based on a study that I did. And I think maybe that is the missing bit when you talk about spirits, because it's not a matter of magic. We're not talking about magic. Nothing is magical. It's the laws of nature are there. They're not supposed to be broken. So it's maybe lack of us investigating, understanding, researching, reading, testing, experimenting, and so on, but also being prepared to accept the results. I have a video here. I don't know if, I think that's probably a good time to share a video that brings a lot of examples that a lot of people have in their lives, near them, in their family. You really don't need to go investigate a lot. If you talk to your friends, your family, and somebody at work, you know somebody that has an experience like that.
May I, before you put the video, let me just
share
a thought, because I think that will help people to see the video with a different perspective.
Yeah, go for it.
What is science? Science, to the majority of us today, means having a massive equipment, instruments, able to report something, right? But if you move back 100 years ago, a couple of 100 years ago, maybe a bit more, there was no instruments. So what was science at the time? Observation. Observing facts, observing phenomena, any sort or level. You start to observe that they happens in a particular time, a particular period. It has a repeatability. So science starts with observation. But we lost that understanding nowadays, because science for us is through instruments. But we should not ignore that observation is indeed a science, that we should observe ourselves, we should observe our loved ones, we should pay attention to what is written by someone's observation and make our own analysis. Because there are things you will not be able to see through an instrument yet. We know that technology is catching up very quickly. So, but today, still, a lot of things we cannot see through instruments. But if you do a thorough exercise or a thorough study about something, having a repeatability, having a very well organized observation, not by on yourself, but a group of people, that open up a lot of possibilities to a different understanding. And then we'll be able to see this video with a different perspective, I hope.
Before I actually present the video, I see there's a few more people here joining us. I'm going to just say hello to Maria Cristina from Spain. Hi. And Rosilda, she sent us a couple of messages that are quite interesting. She said she thinks that our consciousness can prove that we are spirits, and life in this planet is just part of the journey. It goes with the momentary stage that we should kind of see our bodies as. She also says that would be very sad if we all just died here, and I agree 100% with her. I also want to say hello to Clavila Souza. Hi, Clavila. Right, so Guilherme, just going back to your comments, I agree with you. I think we probably lost that principle that science needs observation as a base, right? Rely on observation. That's what I want to say. Rely on observation to initiate the theories and investigations and so on. And I think that is, again, something that's missing. We need to allow ourselves to investigate with the same kind of scientific mind in terms of observing things to find the reasons behind them.
There's something.
Yeah.
People may say already, right? Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. But today, we benefit from observations all over the world and in science. Primary example, penicillin. There was through an observation of a particular fungus that was supposed not to be there. And before he threw away the sample, Well, what is this fungus doing here? That was a simple observation. And it did save lots of lives, and it still does. So people may rush and say that this is not science. Tell that to Fleming. He may have saved your life already, the life of your loved ones, through a simple observation.
Yeah.
So just to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna share the video with everyone. The video is about 5-6 minutes, so bear with us. Let me give the credit to the video producers. They actually got this video from a channel called The Infographic Show, and they're actually not a religious group. They are a company that's just wants to present different topics in a more dynamic and easy to digest way. So I'm going to use part of their video here, but I just want to give the credit to where it belongs. Here it goes.
You're working in a hospice, and one person there that you've taken a liking to is a former merchant marine who's dying of stomach cancer. Let's call him Ron. One day you're sitting at his bedside reading to him, and suddenly you feel a great force take hold of you. Before you know it, you're floating in the air as if you're somehow out of your body. But guess what? There's another ghostly body floating in the air. It's Ron, and he looks at you and smiles. He looks very content indeed, as if trying to tell you that he's A-okay with clocking out and getting a new room in the afterlife. Suddenly, you feel yourself drop, as if your soul has joined your body again. On the bed next to you is Ron. He takes a few more breaths and dies. Ron was real. Well, according to William Peters, the man who was volunteering at a hospice when his soul left his body. But William knew that he'd experienced something earth-shattering, and so he started to research the matter. It was no small deal, of course. If that's true, then science needs to do some explaining, and atheists might want to start revisiting their convictions. What William found out was that what he'd experienced was something that other people have experienced, and the term for it is shared death experience. First, you need to know that the term was coined by a guy named Raymond Moody. He spent 2 decades researching what happens on the other side. Raymond said he never quite bought the idea of near-death experiences being the consequence of something called anoxia, a lack of oxygen in the brain that leads to tripping out for a few seconds. He said that it's unlikely. And how do you explain people who are perfectly healthy doing a jig with the dying? We don't have that opinion in shared death experiences because the bystanders aren't ill or injured, and yet they experience the same kind of things, said Raymond in an interview. We should add here that most shared death experiences are different from Bill's in that people dream of the person dying, and when they wake up, that person in the dream is dead. This has happened a lot. It happened to the American artist Caldonia Curry. This is what she said. I opened the window and the snow started to come through my body, transforming into points of light that bloomed into these intricate snow blossoms. I heard my mom's voice talking to me, and I was filled with a very profound sense of well-being and love. I woke up weeping, my face covered in tears. A few hours later, her sister called to tell her her mom was dead. Do a bit of research and you can find stories like this all over the web. Okay, so now the skeptics take the floor and grab the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, they say, there's nothing to see here. Don't rush back to church too fast and put a hold on that paranormal club membership payment. They say the reason this happens, and we agree it happens, is just because they're traumatized, not enough oxygen is getting to their brain, or they're affected by medicine, or they are simply dreaming. All these things can do strange things to the mind. Really, quip the folks that have experienced this, your scientific explanation for Ron floating in the air and people dying in dreams with their loved ones is that grief did it? It sounds to me that because science can't explain this phenomenon, you're just blaming temporary madness or a brain that isn't working right. That's too easy. It's a cop-out. Back to Raymond Moody. He went on to obtain a PhD in psychology and become a forensic psychiatrist and philosopher. He was an academic and later he became a writer who wrote a lot about deathbed experiences. He wrote a book about, and in it he details scores of cases where folks were clinically dead but went on a bit of a jaunt. He started writing the book after speaking to a psychiatrist named Dr. George Ritchie. George, now dead, explained that when he was 20 he died for 9 and a bit minutes. He was pronounced dead twice by the doctor, but the stubborn man didn't give up the ghost. He came back to life eventually, but only after he got a Pulp Fiction-esque stab in the heart with adrenaline. Raymond, still alive and kicking, included over 150 cases of near-death experiences in his book. Many folks feel peace when released. Being dead is like people tend to feel ecstatic. Many of them come out of their bodies and go someplace. Many walk down a dark tunnel. And for some folks, there's a bright light at the end of that tunnel. Some others meet another being. Some go back to their past, and others visit a land of sheer beauty. Maybe some things just can't be scientifically explained. Perhaps that's what the Society for Psychical Research in London believed in the 1800s when they wrote about what they called deathbed visions. The main author of that paper was named William Barrett. In the early 20th century, he was a professor of physics at the Royal College of Science in Dublin. His wife was an obstetrician, and she saw a lot of women die in childbirth. Barrett spent decades listening to her stories and trying to understand the strange things that happened when people died or just before they died. He wrote a book about it. Here is one story. One woman who was on her deathbed said she saw her sister Vera. She held out her hand and said hello, but what the dying woman didn't know is that her sister had passed away some 3 weeks earlier. Anyhow, she got reacquainted and then expired herself. According to that book, that kind of thing happened to lots of people. Later in the 1970s, a researcher named Carlos Osis decided to do a deep dive into deathbed visions. Carlos wrote that in the US, a woman was on her deathbed, pretty much comatose, but suddenly she just sat up and she had a huge grin on her face. She said, "Oh, Katie, Katie," as if looking at someone. She then flopped down and died. It turned out she had a friend and an aunt, both named Katie. Haven't you heard of something called terminal lucidity? We guessed you hadn't. It's quite the strange phenomenon. What happens is a person is very ill, physically or mentally, but then they suddenly become better, and then they die. They might be suffering from a severe psychiatric or neurological disorder, unable to do anything, never mind communicate. And just before they pop their clogs, they get up and seem totally normal, like completely fixed, talkative, happy, not sick at all. It's as if they're allowed one last goodbye before they conk. The last case, the strangest of all, was in Germany. It sounds unbelievable, and there are those that doubt it happened. But it is a fact that respected physicians witnessed it and wrote about it. It's about a 26-year-old woman named Anna Katharina Emmer. She was committed to an asylum and was looked after by 2 well-known physicians. This woman had been severely retarded from birth, never able to talk, never able to properly feed herself. She pooped and peed herself every day. So one day she was in the hospital bed after having her leg amputated because of osseous tuberculosis. Her family were there because the doctor said she wasn't going to make it. This woman that had never said a single word or recognized a family member, suddenly started chatting with everyone there. She was overjoyed, intelligent, and happy to talk about life. She talked and laughed and smiled so wide. Half an hour later, she was dead. This is a true story. It's been talked about in journals, and no one, we mean no one, has ever been able to explain what happened.
A lot of examples in the video. There's a lot. There's a lot.
There's a lot of questions, I would say. But something that is very important to say is that observation, science, what you just presented was not linked at all with any shape and form of the religion. It's a product of people like you, me, and everybody that may be watching with us. Observation. So what kind of question you may have on those videos?
A lot. Like, there's just so much, because recently there was this new series. It was just released in one of the streaming providers, talking about life after death, and they also had a few examples of people that a near-death experience, and it was just a lot of cases, just people that were clinically, the brain was not functioning, it was dead, they were like without oxygen for like minutes, but like 10 minutes or more, and then they come back and they explain absolutely everything that happened in that room, or they explain details, specific experience they had, and how it cannot be possible if to link that to your body purely if clinically your brain was not functioning. So how is that possible? But the thing is, go Guilherme. What?
Am I just a chemical reaction after all?
So that's the thing, right? It cannot be, otherwise it wouldn't explain those cases. But I've talked to a few friends about this, and they are very skeptical. And they just mentioned, oh, there must be something that we cannot explain yet, or gosh, there is something that's just not explained yet. I said, okay, I have a hypothesis for you, but before we go there, one thing that actually really got me thinking about it is, even if you attribute these cases to a body function issue, how do you explain those cases where you have shared death experiences? Like the first case where there was a nurse that was looking after somebody, and the nurse was fine. The nurse was healthy from a physical perspective, and all of its mind was still working. There was absolutely nothing there. And the nurse shared the same experience, that he kind of left their body and could see them from above, together with the spirit or the soul of the person who was in bed, and then fell back, as they said, onto their body. I mean, how would you explain that?
I would start trying to explain that. First, having one initial thought. Let's say that I'm speaking to someone that's very skeptical, very scientific. That is not easy. Yes, depends on how we present and how we approach this matter. Yes, science did not prove the existence of the soul. Yes, I agree. But did not disprove either. So we have a problem here. Saying it does not exist, but I cannot prove it does not exist. When I say it does not exist, I have some fears. Some situations I feel uncomfortable, to the point that sometimes it does generate fear in some people. Fear about spirits, fear about the unknown. The video we saw has, from the top of my head, at least 5 different topics. EKM, shared death experience, vision, clairvoyance. We had as well, oh my God, I'm getting old.
They call it terminal lucidity in the end.
Terminal lucidity, and there is another one, premonition. It all can be better understood if we start to read a little bit of Kardec, if we open up our hearts and our thoughts to different possibilities, and perhaps until now not accepted or not even considered. But coming back to your question, how can I explain that? We Spiritists, studying for quite some time, we know that our spirit is embedded to our body, but it's something else. Our spirit can move. I put it in very simple words, can move. And it does happen every night when we sleep. But in certain particular situations, can also happen when we are awakened, like what we saw in the video. Of course, it does not happen to everyone, nor every time, but it does happen. And you saw a report of someone that was able to write a book with people experiences, observing people experiences. I do not believe he just thought about that and started to write. He probably had a lot of work to do it, speaking, interviewing, traveling, trying to see if that was not fake, because there are fake things in the world. We all know that. Yeah. But how can we believe if you don't see that? if we never experienced ourselves, well, what has been presented in the video, I hope we don't see that too often, and we don't see that too fast, because Ron, he passed away, and we don't want to pass away. We are not in a hurry, right?
Yeah.
But it can happen. Yeah, you had a question. You were about to say something.
Yeah, it was more of a comment. Before, I'm just reading the comments here in the group, and well, the multiple channels. And this is the Elsa contributed saying that Dr. Peter Fenwick is a neuropsychiatrist. He's an expert in this, in researcher in this topic. And who else? Just want to say hello to Marisa, Norma, and Liliani. If they want to drop their questions, comments, or cases, please feel free so we can put them in our chat. But when I was looking at that video and watching the video, reflecting on it, to me, it's and pretty much every single example that they gave, somebody who is near somebody who's going to die, and then they kind of saw the person with the body and experienced that disconnection from the body with the person. Then the case where somebody was miles away and they dreamed of somebody or remembered of somebody during their dream. They might not even know that the person was ill or anything. And then they kind of realize in the morning, or somebody calls them to let them know that the person passed. And by the way, I had an example like that in my family. I remember very clearly my mother one day, she said, I had a very weird dream. I woke up with somebody coming to say goodbye. And it was somebody I haven't seen in such a long time, somebody I worked with. It wasn't even a close friend. It was just somebody that they worked with, that she worked with. And to her surprise, later on that day, she received a call just to let her know that he had passed. So anyways, like one of the examples I had that I had that in my house one day. But the final ones, those are the ones that even makes the brain go be like, what? Which is people that have been their whole life kind of locked into their bodies because of a condition, a disease, a genetic situation or a condition. And they were pretty much non-functioning live animals for their whole life. And then in the very last moment of their lives, when they never ate by themselves, went to the toilet by themselves, talked, did anything, they were able to just talk, have conversations, talk to the family, just right before they passed. To be very honest with you, the only plausible explanation that would cover all of these cases is we have a soul.
No, hold on. No, you're not going to convince me. Right? I know you're trying to convince me that I have a soul, but you have a very hard time, right? This person that was in bed for whole life didn't have an opportunity to learn how to talk, read, speak, have a conversation. You're trying to convince me that suddenly she woke up and started to talk. Now, come on. They're gonna happen.
I'm not saying this is published in newspapers in Germany. I'm not saying physicists said studied that case and it's still open to be proved. And I can give, as I said, a single, let's call it a hypothesis. I'm not even saying it's an explanation. Let's call it a hypothesis. A simple hypothesis that explains all of this is we are so, our intelligence is actually part of our soul that goes on. And once we approach the moment of death, our soul becomes a bit more loose, let's say, and possesses or has access, it can access its full functions again, and therefore it can overcome that kind of limitation that is a body limitation, which is not your full being, which is just a stage of your life, but your soul is bigger and goes on. Would that not explain all of these cases?
Well, I don't know. If it does explain, I'm not able to tell you. But what I can say is that I cannot prove otherwise. I don't believe what you say, but I cannot prove that you are wrong. Can I? I cannot. But what you said about physicists, doctors, being able to study, report, newspapers, universities looking for similar cases, as we saw in the video, several reports. I have a hard time to have a discussion because I don't believe, let's say, but I cannot prove you wrong. So wouldn't it be better if instead of me saying I don't believe, I decide to consider a few other possibilities? And yet, perhaps, you will convince me or I will convince you. But bear in mind that both of us here, we are not here to convince anyone, right? We are here just to share, just to learn together. I'm just trying to use the opportunity to say that we need to open up our hearts, our possibilities, to understand things that perhaps are beyond comprehension. But more and more, we see videos like that Raf present, papers from universities, doctors, scientists. So there is something there. Is that the soul?
You said something that I was actually thinking about as well, which is my understanding is there's plenty of evidence out there, easy to access, and I'm not even talking again. I'm not talking about going and researching. I'm talking about observation. Going back to the beginning of our talk, observation around you, talking to your friends, your people, your family. That those things are so common, and they happen because they are part of life. If they are natural occurrences, they would happen to all people, all groups, all faiths. It will just happen. But some people might just not be interested or don't believe or don't want to know about it. And as you said, we're not here to convince anyone. I think everybody's on its own right to think about it, reflect or not, and take it as they feel is right for them. But one thing that they cannot deny is the abundance of those cases, of the evidence that's just around us all the time. That is something that is, again, so many papers, academic papers, research, looking into it. So it is there, it is out there.
We are not here to convince anyone, but we are here to make people think, right?
Good point.
I never have a thought about someone that was very, very far from where I am, from a different country, from a different city. And straight away, the phone rings. Who's on the other side of the line? The very same person you do not talk for years. Yes, I am at home. Different noises. The tap is open without anyone open, and I was not there. Something is switching on my TV. Oh, I'm going to certain places that I really do not feel okay in that place. When I'm going inside, it's like a massive pressure over my body, over my soul, if I have one. Sometimes we meet someone and instantly, I'm not feeling very well. you know. And every time I see Rafael, there's something, you know. I don't know what it is, but there is something. There is something. And what is that? What if that kind of thing happens to me? Why am I not trying to understand what it is? I think I have great opportunity. Well, at least I try to learn what's going on around me. So I would suggest people to do the same. Because if you do not have an answer, the answer may be somewhere else. And perhaps we can learn the answer together. What do you think?
You were saying, as you were speaking, I thought about two things. One is 100% agree with the reflection. I think the invitation to the reflection is what we are leaving here to everyone joining us. Go think about it. Go observe and think about it, and come up with your own conclusions and doubts and questions and so on. Because I think that is the only way that you will search for answers and evolve and get in contact with different ideas and different content and answers and so on. But the other thing that you touched, which was probably more of a hook or a connection to our coming episodes, which was, let's assume, if we start from the assumption that spirits exist, the souls exist, and life goes on, and we are more than our bodies right now in this moment. You mentioned hearing things, cracking things, breaking things, feeling the presence of someone, or having a connection with someone else. If we assume we are more than the body, than we are souls, the next point is it possible to interact at a spiritual level? Can we interact with others that are far away, with others that have passed? Again, I have a lot of stories of my personal experience that I can share. That for me, it gives me, again, it puts me in the know. I know of it because I have many examples near me. Let me share some of my examples. Right. So my grandmother, her house, there was a specific phase of her life where her house was just the best house for things to break out of nowhere. So glasses were breaking. They were not being dropped. They were in the middle of the table. There was like absolutely no risk of somebody kind of dropping it. We were in another room, and you would hear a crack or something, and then we would go there, and the glass was broken. Right? She have those bottles. I don't know how to call those bottles. I think they're thermal bottles, the ones that keep like things hot or cold.
Kind of kettle?
Yeah, kind of a kettle. And I think she went through probably 3 of them in a period of like a year or so. But we were not dropping them. They were just exploding and breaking. Just standing there for no reason, with nothing inside. It wasn't because of whatever temperature change. It was just there, open. So how? I have all other examples, but let me pass on to you. What about you, Guilherme?
Well, I know a person that was very, very into pictures, right? Cameras, digital cameras. And there was a top one from a trademark, I won't say here, but there was a DSLR camera, beautiful camera. And this person used to store that camera very carefully. And the camera was dropped from like 1.5 meter. And you can imagine how that hurt, right? How is that possible? It's a heavy object. How is that possible that one person mentioned to us in the past that she was scared because the TV was switching on and off, but only when she was at home. It did not happen when her husband or her kids were there. But as soon as she put the feet inside the house, it started. There are plenty of examples, right? And giving those examples are just a way to make people think and observe around them. Of course, we have to eliminate other causes. Could be wind, could be electricity, could be a lot of things. That's why we say observe. Eliminate plausible causes. Prepare yourself to be a scientist. Nah, there was a wind who dropped that camera. There was no wind.
Strong wind. Very strong wind.
There was an earthquake. That country does not have earthquakes. We need to practice that kind of behavior to be able to put ourselves in a situation where we can start to understand things. And everything that we are saying here, what does happen? Why so? We thought that thing was about mediumship. Because if you do not believe in soul, if you do not believe in spirits, it will be very hard to understand mediumship. They are tied together. We need to understand little things in order to be able to understand mediumship and to prepare ourselves to make more questions. And I really, really would like to say that the majority of people don't feel comfortable to ask questions, but there is no such a thing as a stupid question. There is no such a thing as a question that I should not ask. If you do not ask, you will never know. And there is a possibility to ask through our chat or even through the form that you saw the QR code over there. So we have means to open up our hearts, take our doubts away. And I would like to say that I hope you use it.
Yeah, just before we are reaching the end of our first episode, and I think it went by really quick. I can openly share that I was nervous. It's the first time we're doing this, but it actually felt quite good. It went by very quick. But anyways, you're mentioning about the mediumship and that connection. We need to understand and start from the assumption or from the understanding that spirits exist, because that is the basics of how can mediumship happen, how can people interact, hear, see, or multiple other examples that we will talk about in the future if spirits don't exist. I think that's the main thing. And just similarly to the examples you gave before, again, it's been all around us all the time. How many kids that can say they can see ghosts, people that can see, hear, talk? How many people are afraid of ghosts, haunted houses, haunted places? What is behind all of that? Anyways, things for us to explore a bit more next time. As Guilherme mentioned, we have a QR code. This QR code will direct you to a form. If for any reason you don't feel comfortable putting a question yourself in the comments box, and you want to do an anonymous question or comment, or just send us a suggestion or anything, please feel free to look into the QR code. And we're also going to leave that link in the video. So if you want to join but not quite sure about exposing yourself, please use that to be an anonymous contribution. That is it. I think we got to the end, and I'm gonna quickly just shout again, thank you to everybody that joined. I see many new names here. Elsa Lee from Stockholm, Faye, Ronaldo, Marisa, Vanessa. Thanks everyone. Keep the questions coming. Once again, the purpose of this is to talk, to chat, to address, to incorporate your comments and your questions in the middle as we discussed. I think that is what we're trying to offer here, the possibility to ask questions in the middle of the live. With that said, I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Guilherme, you want to say goodbye?
Yeah, there was a wonderful experience being here with you, being here with all of you. And I hope that somewhere along the line, we helped prepare people to see things in a little bit different way. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be here again. And hopefully, when people feel comfortable with us, they will see that we all can talk together. We can learn together.
Perfect. I couldn't have put in better words. Thank you. See you guys in a couple of weeks. Ciao.
Bye-bye.